Well, first, Maggie, let me start out by welcoming you to the University of Memphis Lambeth campus in Jackson, Tennessee. And I'm Niles Reddick, Vice Provost here, and we are delighted to have Maggie Vaughn from Bell Buckle, who is the Tennessee Poet Laureate, with us today. Maggie, I've known for many, many years.
Many years.
More than we probably want to talk about on television. But you became Poet Laureate in the Sundquist administration.
95.
And you are Poet Laureate for your entire lifetime.
No.
Okay.
The House gave it to me for life.
Okay.
The Senate amended it to every 5 years. I renewed.
Okay.
What happened was the Poet Laureate before me got older and bad health, and he couldn't travel or anything, and he never did really travel the United States like I do. So they didn't want to take a chance of someone being in there who can't travel or something, and that's why they do it. They just renewed me for 5 more years.
Well, good. I'm glad they did.
Yeah, well.
So you could come visit us. But before you were Poet Laureate of Tennessee, you've been a business person for many, many years, I know, and you were a songwriter.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your songwriting past?
Well, first of all, let me tell you this. I'm so excited to be on this campus.
Well, thank you.
And I thank you for inviting me. Anytime you need me, I'll be here.
Thank you.
Yes, in 1961, I lived in Nashville for 1 year. And I signed with a publishing company there, Surefire. And they said to me, Maggie, there's a girl we're going to sign here. She's coming, should be in the next 2 days. Said she's on the Zero label. And I said, oh, she's got a hit song called Honky Tonk Girl. And it was Loretta Lynn, of course. I said, I can't wait to meet her. So I used to be backstage at the Ryman every Saturday night. So she walked up to me, she shook my hand, she said, I'm Loretta Lynn. And I said, I'm Maggie Vaughn. And we've been, for 50-something years, as close as you can be. I mean, it's unbelievable how close we are. And so I still write for her, and I've had songs cut by Ernest Tubb and Loretta and Conway Twitty, Charlie Louvin, different ones, just, you know. But back then, you didn't make a lot of money. I had to work. So I stayed about a year, and I went back to Gulfport, Mississippi, where I was raised. I was born in Murfreesboro. And I went to work there for a newspaper. So the Tennessean and Banner owned Newspaper Printing Corporation, which was their advertising for both papers. It was in the same building. And so they called me to work there. And I thought, I want to go home. Tennessee's my home. And so I moved back, and not long after that, Mama moved back. And my brother was already living there and married. So that's kind of how that happened. And I kept writing songs. I stayed with the Surefire for a long time. Then I went with Loretta's company, Coal Miners Music.
Mm-hmm.
She's something else, I tell you. I'll tell you a story. Mark Lowry, who's with the Gaithers, I don't know if you know him or not.
Mm-hmm.
He, the comedian, a great singer.
Know who he is.
Okay. Well, he came to my house a couple of months ago, and we had the best time. And he knew how much I love Loretta, and he loves Loretta too. And he said, Maggie, he said, I called her not too long ago, and I said, I can't come to see you right now. I broke my humor. And she said, well, what's a humor? And that's how her rhythm, what's a humor? And he says, well, it's between your kneecap and your knee and your thigh. Hip, I'm sorry. She said, it's between your knee and your hip. She said, well, why didn't you just say thigh bone? And I consider myself a thigh bone poet, because you know what? You get these big words, people don't understand them, they don't want to hear them, they don't want to hear you talk. Honey, I talk plain. And that's why Loretta's so successful. She has not changed one day, not one day, since I've met her.
What was the best song that you wrote, that you remember having the most success?
Well, I was nominated for a Grammy several years ago for one of Loretta's songs. She forgot I wrote it and forgot to put a name on it. So I called her. Oh God, Maggie, she said, I just pulled it out of some stuff. Can't read your writing, and your name wasn't on it. See, we were so close. I used to not even put my name on stuff I'd picture. So she did the right thing, and she apologized and everything. So it's okay. Even if she never, I still love that girl. But she fixed it, and I guess that's my most successful. She and Jack White did that one together.
And what was the name?
I Miss Big Mrs. Tonight.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
What about others that you worked with? Did you have a good relationship that continued with some other
Well, most of
writers
them dead.
as well?
Ernest is dead, and Conway's dead, and once I kind of left and moved to Bell Buckle, I got out of the songwriting a lot because I wanted to do books, and so I still know a lot of them, and they come to Bell Buckle, and I see them, and keep up with a few of them, but mostly Loretta. Well, I made a mistake a while ago, and just forgive me, Lord, I'm going to be 77 in July. It's a femur bone between your knee and your hip. I think I called it a humor a while ago. I get them all mixed up. See, I don't know myself. And but Mark Lowry said I broke my femur, and that's when Loretta said, "Well, what's that?" So I just want to clear that up.
What about being at the on the backstage at the Grand Ole Opry? Who did you get to meet? And
All of them.
All of them.
Oh, I knew them all. Patsy, all of them. Marty, met them all.
And weren't you friends with Minnie Pearl?
Oh, one of my dearest friends.
Okay.
Yeah, she's responsible for my first book,
Yeah.
and it killed me when she passed away. But she and I were very close. Yeah.
And she was no one quite like her either.
Oh,
Right.
nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody like me. Oh, I've got so many stories I could tell on Minnie and Loretta. Unbelievable. Can't tell them all. But
Well, I'd like for you to tell one that you've never
no.
told. No, we're not going to put you on the spot
Not
today.
gonna spot.
No.
Okay. I can
But-
write books on them.
But tell me, so you have written about 18 books, am I correct?
I'm on my 18th one right now.
And we met many years ago in Bell Buckle.
Yeah.
And I know that you've spoken many times. I've heard you speak many times. And there are some of your poems, which of course always bring the crowd down. But I have to say, I think the best time I ever heard you speak was in Rutherford County at the Rotary Club.
Oh, gosh.
When you taught the mayor out of his Barber blazer, which probably is about $1,000 blazer.
I couldn't afford them. I see them in catalogs. And I kept saying, oh my God, you've got on that blazer. I can't afford one. I'd love to. And I kept on. And so when I finished, he took it off and put it on me. I still have it. Yeah.
You still wear it?
Still wear
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Well, they never wear out.
They never.
They never wear out.
Yeah. I love that blazer.
What do you think is your all-time best poem that brings the most requests?
Is That You, Mama?
Is That You, Mama?
And Counting on Sunday.
Counting on Sundays.
And I have one called Rocks.
Rocks. I remember Rocks.
I'm out of that book, so I didn't bring it, but it's about going back to college.
Yes.
And
you went back to Middle Tennessee State
Tennessee
University,
State.
correct?
I couldn't pass biology, so I didn't graduate from. I went to Perkinston Junior College, which is now Mississippi Gulf Coast College, and then on to Mississippi Southern there in Hattiesburg. And so I had 4 years plus a whole summer trying to pass biology. Couldn't do it. Took it 10 times and flunked it. So when I got to MTSU, the advisor looked at my transcript. First, she had to blow the dust off and say, you can't pass biology. I said, so don't put me in it. So she sent me to geology. And I knew by then, see, I was 42 or 44, I can't remember, 44, I think. And the day before the class was started, I went over to the professor, slumped down, about 80, hair going everywhere, kind of like mine. And I just walked up to him, introduced myself, and said, I'm in your class, and I hate rocks. And I went on about how I hated rocks and all the things associated, And so I ended it with, you know, it's been nice meeting you. I've been in your 9 o'clock class. By the way, did I tell you I hate rocks? Well, I scared him so much that they passed by, and put the tray of rocks down in front of everybody. And he passed me by, didn't even put one down. And this little co-ed said, "How come you didn't get a box of rocks?" I said, "Shut up, I'm old." And he passed me, and I got a degree finally. Took me forever.
Well,
So,
good. I know that was a monumental occasion
It
for
was.
you,
I
too.
was old. I'm so old, none of my relatives came. Even my mama didn't show up.
Well, a lot of times non-traditional students make the best student.
Well, I don't know.
Well, what about the poem you wrote about your mother after she had passed?
Is that you, Mama? Yeah.
And that's a beautiful,
It's my most requested.
yeah.
And you know what? It's the simplest poem you've ever heard. But it's from the heart.
It is.
Again, poets, poets come to see me all the time. I have, gosh, through the years, several hundred people visit me at my home if I'm in town. And I help them. And I'm going to invite anybody who needs any help or anything to come see me in Bell Buckle. I'll be glad to help you. But she handed me her new book, and I opened it up, and she had a line there, and then there was plenty of space left, but on the next line she wrote one word, "silence," and then went on with the poem. So I said, "Why did you drop that word down? Did you just not want to fill out the line?" And she said, "No." She says, "I wanted the silence after the sentence." And I said, "Well, I didn't get it." And she said, "That's the reason you write for the ear and I write for the page." And she said, writing for the ears, if you don't write for the ear, you don't sell any books. If you write for the page, because if you're up reading, what I'll be doing tonight,
Right.
They don't see the page. They see the image. When you buy real estate, they say the most important thing is location, location, location. Well, for me, for writing, it's image, image, image. If you can see a picture, draw a picture in your brain from a sentence or a poem I just said, then that gets it. I mean, these poets who write for each other, I mean, they may sell 500 in a lifetime. I've sold thousands because people relate to it like they do country music. I got my voice from country music.
And you refer to yourself, I've heard you say this before, as the people's poet.
I'm
the people's poet.
Yeah. I've gone to places like Chamber of Commerce music, talking about music, meetings, like banquets. And the men would say, "Oh, God, not a poet." But when they leave, I mean, this is just a reaction. When they leave, they come up to me and buy books and say, "You've turned me on to poetry."
Yeah.
Because they related to it. When I wrote about the baseball games we used to watch in the country, their mind went back to them playing baseball or marbles or all the stuff I write about. And some of the books, now I've gone on and written a little more sophisticated things now because I've gotten older, but you can relate to it.
Well, and I remember, quite frankly, in a 1-hour poetry reading where you could have people 1 minute laughing hysterically because, like Counting on Sundays, and the next minute when you read, there are tears in their eyes. Yeah. And I think that says a lot. I think that says exactly what you're talking about with the imagery.
The imagery, yeah, that emotion that you stir in people.
And what about Counting on Sundays? That's one of my favorites too.
Well, I was bored in church and wrote that.
Yeah,
Wrote
something we all relate to.
Yes, I wrote it down on the bulletin, everything I counted, and when I got out, I wrote the poem.
I remember very clearly coming to visit you in Bell Buckle many times, and particularly one Saturday when the Bell Buckle Moon Pie Festival was going on, and you wrote a poem which you read on television about a moon pie.
The moon pie. Terrible poem.
But it was a good festival, and Bell Buckle's a very unique place, and really seems to me, or always did seem to me, to be a real contrasting kind of place, because on the one hand you've got the Webb private school there, Webb School, and then you've got Bedford County, everybody else, and you've got a lot of
Farmers.
performers
Yeah,
and,
artists,
artists, a lot of
yeah.
artists in that region.
We've got Russ Faxon, who is known all over. I mean, he's got bronze sculptures everywhere. A lot of artists there, a lot of them who are internationally known.
And would you consider yourself an eccentric personality,
Pretty
Maggie?
much, yeah, yeah.
Do you remember the story about the cow?
You had to brief me a little bit, honey.
Driving and seeing the cow in the road.
I hit it.
I know you hit a cow.
Honey, it was the last night, I think, of the horse show in Chebyville. And of course, everybody's there. And do you remember Olive Jean, gray hair, white hair? She and I had gone somewhere to Nashville, and we were coming home about 10 o'clock. And all of a sudden, I topped a hill, and there was this big black, I think it was a bull. And it's just, I threw the brakes on because I didn't want to hurt it. And it just slid on the hood all the way to the window, my windshield. And I thought, oh, God, it's coming in, you know. But it didn't. It got up and walked off. And I found out who it belonged to. I saw a light on. And they say, oh, yeah, that bull gets out quite a bit, you know. But I said to Jean, I said, you think we need to call the police? She said, you're not going to get a policeman. This is the horse show. Huh? They all go to that. You know, that horse show's a big deal in Chebyville.
It is. Well, what are you writing now?
I'm working on a book called Out of the Box.
Okay.
And I'll tell you a little story about that. Am I talking too much? I was in Buffalo, New York, and I was in this art place. A man has a warehouse. I just love it. And he had the back of a seat, a bus seat, and there was in graffiti, a picture there. And I said, well, what's that about? He said, that is from a very famous artist out of Detroit. And he said that was the back of a bus seat, not the original one, but the same make, model, and year of the one Rosa Parks rode. And so I didn't think a whole lot more about it, and I went on. And I went to see him every year when I'd go to Buffalo. I used to speak a lot at their college. And I kept up with him. And finally one day I was sitting there and I thought, that'd be a perfect poem for this book. So I called him. And the piece was pretty expensive, but he let me pay it on time, and he shipped it to me. So I called Tyree Guytons, who did it. He's a very internationally known graffiti artist there. And my friend who had the guy over there said, you know, it's stolen, but he said, I didn't steal it. He said, but it's been investigated and all that through other art galleries. And I said, well, okay. And I said, after I got, I said, I'm going to call him and tell him what I want to do with it. I want to make a picture of it and put it in the book with a poem. So I called him, and I introduced myself, Maggie Vaughn, and I said, I have that back of that seat out of that bus. And he said, well, Maggie, you know it's stolen. And I said, I know it, but I didn't steal it, and the man I got it from didn't steal it. And I said, but I'll do the right thing. I said, if you'll let me just photograph it and write the poem, I'll give you this, ship it back to you. He said, oh, no. He said, let me tell you. He says, you just follow your heart. And he said, when you're finished, then maybe you can put it in the right place. And so I said, well, I think what I'd like to do is give it to maybe a civil rights museum. And his wife, it was a three-way call, said, well, they're doing a thing at the Smithsonian on Rosa Parks. And I said, well, whatever. You know. And I heard that Memphis has a great civil rights museum. And I thought that might be, since, you know, Martin Luther King lost his life there, and that might be the place to put it. So I'm working on the book now, and I'm writing a poem about Rosa and Tyree, who did the bus. He painted the whole bus graffiti. Now, it's not the regular one, but you'll never find another one like it. But someone just got in there and took that back seat. And it's sitting up in my house. So this big graffiti face on it.
Well, I remember you are a collector of art.
I love it.
And a collector of antiques.
Love
I know I bought a couple of antiques from you. I know I bought your
chair.
squeaky office chair at one point. But you also have visited a lot of poets' graves, if I recall, and have a collection of poet grave, not of their real. You didn't steal their graves, but
They're
replicas, I guess, of their graves.
Years ago, Carol Canute, who is my editor, and I said, let's do a book on authors' graves, poets, and just different ones, and write a poem about them. And we'll divide up the book. You write some poems, I'll write the others. And we went everywhere, and took pictures. But you know, she came down with cancer and of the breast, and then later I did, and I've had 2 cancers within a year and a half of each other, kidney and breast, but I'm okay. But anyway, we went everywhere, and I've still got the pictures and the negatives, and one day I may get it out, you know, I got to get her if she wants to help to write her part. I was so excited. I'm the only poet, as far as I know, to receive a Mark Twain Fellowship. And I asked him, I said, you know, all the ones that had gone on before were scholars that wrote autobiographies and things, not autobiographies, but biographies on Mark Twain. And I said, why'd you pick me? And they said, because you remind us so much of Mark Twain. Your wit and stuff and the poems. And so I spent, this is where he did all of his summer writings. Huck Finn, Tom Sawyer, all that. In the winter he traveled. I slept in his bed, ate at his table, wrote in his studio. I mean, did it all. And it was just unbelievable. And they treated me with royalty. You know, the people who took care of it, made sure I had plenty of food. And it was wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
What's the best place you've ever visited? The most impressive poet's grave or home?
It's Author's Ridge. It's a cemetery. And Louisa Alcott, and so many of them are buried right in there together. And Walden.
Emerson?
Yeah, is buried there. And so there was a letter on his grave. And I said, Karen, we got to read that letter. Got to read it. So we read it. And we put it back. It was like a love letter to him. We put it back and put it back on the grave.
A recent love letter?
Yeah, recent, yeah. And so when we got to the house, because we made pictures what we can of the houses too, there was a woman there who let us in, and it was very nice. And we told her about visiting and making pictures of the grave, and about the letter we read. Henry, she said, "You read Henry's mail?" She was furious.
Oh, Thoreau. Henry Thoreau, okay.
Right. Honey, we get to be almost 77, you can't remember him. And we said, well, yes, we put it back. I can't believe you read Henry's mail. And we said, well, we didn't take it or anything, you know. So we were going to go to Walden's Pond. And, honey, the biggest lightning storm you have ever seen hit while we were there.
It's because you read his mail.
We read his mail. I said, boy, we made him mad, you know. They were getting people were in the pond, they got them out because of lightning. And we didn't do too good at the pond.
Who does Maggie Vaughn read when you read?
Well, I read Lee Smith.
Yes, Lee Smith.
She's my favorite.
And you did a book which you dedicated to Lee Smith, and we did an interview with Lee Smith and included that in the book. Southern Voices in Every Direction. Many years ago.
Many years ago. I have that book with me for tonight. I don't carry it a lot, but I thought I'd bring it.
Yeah, she is certainly one of the best fiction writers.
She's got the best ear of anyone I've ever read. I love Robert Frost. To be honest, so many people send me things to read that I spend a lot of my time just trying to read the local United States poets that send me things, and I don't read a whole lot of the other. I only have one eye. I was born with one eye. And so as you get older, your eyesight starts fading anyway. So, but I try to read everything. I mean, I've written a lot of forwards and blurbs, and people just send me things to help suggest things. And, but Lee's my favorite.
Yeah, she's a delightful
Yeah.
person.
And of course, the poets have become, poet laureates across the country have become very good friends. And I've been to a lot of things with them.
Yeah, and I recall you and I were at a conference together in Columbus, Georgia a few years ago.
Yeah.
And you stood in for one of the poets who was sick, if I'm not mistaken, maybe Alabama or South Carolina.
There was someone else that I was invited on my own.
Yes,
but then
right.
The Alabama poet got sick.
Right.
But I'll never forget what you said when you walked in and saw me. He said, "Oh God, don't tell me I have to follow Maggie Vaughn."
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Because you had probably, and we were on the same time period.
yeah.
I was doing stories and you were doing poetry. And I think you were in the auditorium and you probably had 400 or 500 people in your session, and I had about 50 in mine. Yes, I knew when I knew when you were on the same schedule that I was doomed.
Up laughing, yeah. And when I read with the Port Laureates, I had 4 or 5 to come to Bell Buckle 2 years ago. But I've read with them all the ones that we have a little group there, and they won't follow me. I have to go last every time. They just won't follow me, and not because I'm a great poet, but because they're pretty academic.
Yeah.
See.
Yeah.
And I kind of make people relax.
Yeah. Which is good.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Niles.
I
It's
appreciate
great
it.
being here. Lovely campus.
It is.
I'm
Thank
so
you.
proud of you.
Thank you.